Good morning. This is Kathleen Clough, the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Wednesday, August 26th, 2026. Fire potential headlines include critical fire weather conditions continuing across much of the basin this week, with daily dry thunderstorms and gusty winds. Although fuels are not critical, the combination of dry fuels with critical fire weather conditions is allowing for landscapes to carry fire efficiently. Looking at our fire potential impacts over the next 3 days, we continue to expect to see those windy conditions across northwestern Nevada and the Sierra Front today, as well as those mixed thunderstorms across the eastern half of the basin with some drier lightning potential up in the central Idaho mountains. That will persist tomorrow with some additional areas of windy conditions across southern Nevada as well as the central Idaho mountains, and that continued thunderstorm coverage. On Friday, we'll start to see more moisture move into the basin, especially that northwest corner, and we'll also see some windy conditions across western Nevada and western Utah there. Looking at our current watches and warnings, we just have an extreme heat warning down in the Vegas Strip areas where they expect to see high temps around 110 today. Looking at the past 24 hours, we saw continued thunderstorm coverage across the north as well as Utah there, and you can see some of those storms had up to 3/4 of an inch of rain in very isolated pockets, but for the most part, they were on the drier side, maybe up to a tenth. And you can see we also got some lightning with that as well across Utah, eastern Nevada, and Idaho. Over the past 24 hours, the Great Basin had 32 new starts for a total of 1,918 acres and a large fire growth of 44,648 acres. Satellite this morning shows some lingering cloud cover and storm coverage across kind of that northern half of the basin, but otherwise clear skies across much of Nevada and southern Utah. Looking at our smoke impacts the next couple days, we expect to see some heavier impacts across northern Nevada and Idaho from ongoing fires. You can see the signature from the Crooked Fire there, and across Utah as well from their ongoing fires, kind of in northwestern Utah, as well as the Slough Canyon fire in eastern Utah. But overall, the rest of the basin will see some light smoke impacts, really more just kind of localized impacts from our ongoing fires, and then a little bit of impact from that timber fire in California drifting into Nevada tomorrow. Looking at our current ERC conditions, we're a pretty even mix of above the 80th percentile and above the 70th percentile, so pretty even orange and red on the map there. Much drier, of course, in that northwestern corner where we see some spots in the Payette, especially over the 90th percentile. Overall, we'll continue to see ERCs climb. We're looking at central Idaho here in the top and then northwest Nevada on the bottom there. So we'll see a rise in northwest Nevada over the next 3 days, and then they'll see a drop from that expected precip and come right back up and kind of stay in the same category. So overall, persisting conditions, above that 80th percentile range. Looking at the next 1 to 3 days, you can see those continued dry and breezy conditions across that northwestern portion of the basin today. And we start to see some more moisture move into the basin starting Thursday, and especially on Friday, you can see that band of moisture coming in where we expect to see those heavier rain totals. For today, we've issued some burn environment triggers across the western half of the central Idaho mountains, given their breeziness and dryness, as well as some lightning triggers in that eastern half where we expect to see some more dry lightning coverage. We also expect to see continued lightning coverage across northeast Nevada and northwest Utah there, as well as those windy conditions across northwest Nevada and the Sierra Front. These conditions will expand on Thursday. We expect to see higher winds up in Idaho, and then also some high winds kind of in the north and south Ely areas of Nevada, and then again some more lightning triggers and some drier storms across southern Sierra Front area. And then by Friday, we expect to see that moisture come in. So we've got a lot more low risk on the map, and still we'll expect to see some windy areas across portions of Nevada and Utah, as well as a burn environment trigger in eastern Utah where the Slough Canyon fire is. You can see that wind pattern here in our wind maps, where we've got the higher winds in orange and those gusty storm outflows really day to day, and then that higher wind day on Friday for those southern areas. Overall, RH wise, RH is in the teens across the kind of western half of the basin and lower elevations of Utah. And we'll see a lot of RH recovery on Friday for that northwestern portion of the basin, but again, still remaining in the teens across that southern half of the basin. Looking at our precip maps, you can see that continued scattered storm coverage today and tomorrow, where we expect to see that drier lightning up north even into Thursday morning, with a little bit less precip coverage coming with that. And then by Friday, we expect to see more widespread rain coverage and also some higher rain totals, especially across that northwestern portion of the basin. We will also see normal temperatures the next few days. and then some cooling down on Friday with that kind of front coming in and that precip. And then you can see, continuing triple digits down across the Vegas Strip there. Looking at Saturday into the weekend, we can see some drier air moving in after that shot of precip and also some breezier conditions that we're looking out for. Overall, you can see we've got some recovery from that moisture on Saturday, and then by Sunday, we start drying right back out, especially in that kind of western half of the basin. But we'll continue to see a little bit more precip coverage across eastern Utah, so some greening up there as well. But overall, moving into that next, kind of drying trend in the west. Looking at our wind maps for this weekend into Monday, you can see those higher winds starting to move in on Sunday and then more widespread coverage of those higher winds on Monday, especially across portions of Utah and central Idaho there. We do expect to see RHs drying out, especially in the western half of the basin. You can see moving back into the teens by Sunday, and then continuing to stay dry on Monday with slightly lower values as well. But we will see much higher RH values in the eastern half of the basin, especially in those lower elevations of Utah. You can see Sunday, high 20s, low 30s for the Slough Canyon area. So definitely some RH recovery in the east through Monday. Looking at our weekend precip chances, you can see that precipitation shifting, more to the eastern half of the basin there, with much higher totals across the high elevations of Utah and even that eastern half there on Sunday, and some continued lingering precip on Monday as it kind of makes its way out. Overall, we expect to see cooler temperatures basin wide, low to mid 80s across the basin through Monday, so definitely a little bit below normal for us. And still near those triple digits down the Vegas strips, but overall much lower temperatures. Summing up our precip, you can see those continued scattered chances today and tomorrow with heavier coverage on Friday for the northwestern kind of half of the basin there. And then that precip will shift to have higher coverage in the east on Saturday and Sunday. And then again, we'll see those lingering storms continue up north on Monday and across Utah. And then by Tuesday, much less storm coverage, but still continued precip kind of over that Utah area. Summing up our 7 day, our next 3 days are probably the biggest of this 7 day period. So we've got that continued dry lightning risk Wednesday and Thursday, as well as some wind risk following those lightning triggers. So keeping an eye out on new starts and holdovers. And then by Friday, we'll have that rain recovery across the northwest, but still some windy conditions and burn environment triggers for portions of eastern Nevada and Utah. By Saturday, we'll see a lot more recovery basin wide, but then by Sunday, we'll already start to dry out again in the western half of the basin as that dry air moves in. Looking at our 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, you can see that bullseye of below normal temperatures, which we discussed in those maps that we saw today. And then you can see, normal temperatures across the middle of the basin and maybe some higher than normal across portions of Utah there. For our 6 day precip, we're in a bullseye for a better chance of above normal precipitation. So this is good news for us, maybe some more monsoonal moisture coming our way, but overall below normal temps and some above normal precip. That concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.